Take a moment and consider the biggest financial lie you've ever been told. It's not about cryptocurrencies or complex stock market manipulation. It's about the very paper money in your wallet, the debt on your mortgage, and the quiet, persistent inflation that steals your future. You are living inside a global financial structure anchored to a single currency, the US dollar, a dominance so profound it dictates the price of a barrel of oil in Dubai, the interest rate in London, and the value of your labor in New York. But this dominance is not a natural law. It's the result of a single, desperate moment in history, a secret deal, and a broken promise. If you feel like the system is rigged, you must first understand the moment it was created. This is the complete, surgically precise history of the American dollar's coronation, its catastrophic betrayal of the world, and why the final, defining crisis is not coming, but is already here. To understand how the dollar became the world's emperor, we must first witness the collapse of the previous king, the British pound sterling. For a century, the pound was the reserve currency, its strength rooted in the largest empire on earth and, crucially, a solid tie to gold. But the vast expense of World War I and the utter financial devastation of World War II bled the British treasury dry. Britain paid for global victory with global debt. As London burned and resources drained, the United States, separated by an ocean and entering the fight late, emerged as the only nation with its industrial capacity intact and, most importantly, holding 2/3 of the entire world's gold supply. The old world was exhausted. The new world held all the gold. The new global financial order was formally established in July 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference in New Hampshire. Representatives from 44 nations, including a financially desperate UK, gathered to forge a system of stability. The American delegation, armed with the world's gold, dictated the terms. They rejected proposals for a global reserve unit and installed the gold exchange standard. Every major currency on Earth would be fixed to the US dollar, and the dollar, in turn, was pegged to gold at a rate of $35 per ounce. The US Treasury issued a solemn, official promise to the world's central banks. Any dollar could be redeemed for physical gold. The dollar was now as good as gold. This was not merely an economic agreement, it was a political and cultural coronation, solidifying the Anglo-American economic model based on open markets, free trade, and American financial oversight as the global standard. This exorbitant privilege allowed the US to issue its currency for goods and services globally, a power no empire had held so absolutely. For nearly 2 decades, the system fueled an unparalleled boom across the English-speaking world, from the American suburbs to the rebuilding of European industry. But a poison pill was buried within the pact, a fundamental contradiction known as the Triffin Dilemma. For the dollar to be the world's reserve currency, the US had to export massive quantities of dollars, run a trade deficit, so that foreign nations had enough currency to settle global trade and use as reserves. Yet by printing and exporting these vast sums of paper dollars, the US simultaneously undermined its ability to honor the gold promise. The world was accumulating more dollars than Fort Knox held gold. The promise of $35 for an ounce became a mathematical impossibility. By the mid-1960s, the golden chain was becoming a chokehold. Foreign leaders, notably French President Charles de Gaulle, saw the fraud clearly. He famously called the US position an unacceptable imbalance and began a systematic public campaign of demanding that France's dollar reserves be exchanged for US gold. De Gaulle's defiance sent a powerful signal to the rest of the world. As the US government recklessly financed the costly Vietnam War and massive domestic social programs by printing even more money, the gold drain accelerated. The American financial machine, once the beacon of stability, was now visibly playing fast and loose with the global monetary system. The dollar's credibility was being bled out, ounce by ounce, and the US was forced to choose between political ambition and financial integrity. They chose ambition, setting the stage for the most violent monetary event of the 20th century. The time for deception was over, the moment for outright breakage was at hand. The entire foundation of your financial reality was about to be obliterated by a single, desperate, televised speech. The ultimate betrayal and the petrodollar anchor. The mounting pressure culminated in a final, irreversible crisis in 1971. In the first half of that year, the dollar hemorrhaged value and credibility. Germany and Switzerland, unable to absorb the continuous flood of American dollars without sparking hyperinflation, cut their currencies linked to the dollar. The fixed system of Bretton Woods was openly collapsing. Then came the ultimate demand. Britain requested the exchange of $3 billion for physical US gold, a direct challenge that would have critically depleted Fort Knox. President Richard Nixon and his economic cabinet faced an impossible choice: a painful, politically suicidal devaluation or a complete abandonment of the 1944 promise. They chose the nuclear option. On Sunday, August 15, 1971, in a shocking address to the nation and the world, President Nixon enacted the Nixon Shock. He unilaterally closed the gold window, ending the convertibility of the US dollar to gold for foreign central banks. The official $35 promise was broken forever. This was the moment the dollar officially became a true fiat currency, money backed by nothing but the government's decree and the collective belief of the global economy. In a single night, the financial rulebook for the entire world was tossed out the window, and every person holding dollars, from American homeowners to Japanese exporters, was silently taxed. The immediate chaos was contained by global market closures, but the long-term consequence was the transfer of unimaginable power to the US government. The power to print money without any physical constraint, funding wars, deficits and bailouts by stealthily devaluing the currency held by its own citizens. The dollar was now naked, a floating piece of paper. It needed a new, mandatory anchor to maintain global demand. The answer was found in the geopolitical necessity of oil. Following the 1973 Yom Kippur War, the US, through a series of complex and often secret negotiations led by Henry Kissinger, forged a new, enduring pact with the Saudi Arabian royal family. The deal was simple, revolutionary and defining. Saudi Arabia, the world's most crucial oil producer, would agree to sell its oil only in US dollars. In return, the US promised military protection and access to American financial markets. This was the birth of the Petro-Dollar System. The effect of the petrodollar was instantaneous and absolute. Because the entire world needed oil to heat homes, run factories and power vehicles, every nation was now forced to obtain and hold US dollars just to conduct fundamental commerce. The dollar was no longer backed by gold, but by oil and American military supremacy. This provided the new, unshakable source of global demand needed for a paper currency. It allowed the US to run perpetual, massive trade deficits, borrowing trillions and exporting the resulting inflation without its currency collapsing. The petrodollar system allowed financialization to explode, turning debt into the most profitable product in history. With endless demand for dollars, Wall Street could create complex, highly leveraged instruments fueled by the returning petrodollars. The 2008 crisis, born of excessive, fraudulent leverage, proved how fragile this system was. But in the ultimate paradox, the world panicked and ran back to the dollar for safety, showing the power of the paper anchor one last time. Today, the system faces existential threats that Bretton Woods never did. The US national debt has passed $35 trillion, a figure so large it defies comprehension, with interest payments alone consuming the budget. More critically, the rise of the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, is an explicit, coordinated political attempt to create alternative trade currencies and payment systems, aiming to dismantle the petrodollar dominance, one trade deal at a time. The ultimate risk to the dollar is no longer a gold drain, but a complete erosion of trust and utility driven by unsustainable debt and the willingness of geopolitical rivals to challenge the American financial order. The rules of the game are about to change again, and this time the consequences for the citizen living inside this experiment will be unavoidable.